In the bustling city of Chicago, there is an old man who silently walks through the streets, holding a worn leather notebook in his hands. No one knows who he is. No one knows that every morning, he sits alone in crowded cafés, his thoughtful eyes seemingly listening to an invisible sound. Some say he used to be a billionaire. Others claim he's just a wanderer with a shattered past, but what few know is that this man is doing something strange, something unimaginable. He's buying wishes. Have you ever wondered, if one day, your deepest wish were quietly granted by someone, how would your life change? And is there anyone left in this world who truly believes in the power of those small wishes? Come with me as we journey through the story of The Man Who Bought Wishes, a warm, touching, and hopeful tale. If you love stories that heal, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and join me on this journey, because, who knows? The small wish in your heart might just be waiting to be heard. Benjamin Walker is a special man, though no one truly knows who he is, at least not the people who see him regularly in Chicago. He lives in a modest apartment on the third floor of an old building, opposite a small park. His apartment is nothing extraordinary: simple furniture, light beige curtains, and an old wooden desk where he spends most of his time jotting down notes that only he understands. People in the neighborhood don't recognize him as a billionaire, because Benjamin doesn't look like someone who's rich. He doesn't drive luxury cars or live in a grand mansion. Instead, he has chosen a quiet, simple life, as though he wants to hide from the world. Benjamin used to be a successful man with millions of dollars, but everything changed on a stormy day that he would never forget. From that day on, he decided to walk away from the spotlight and focus on the simplest things in life. He no longer attended important meetings or extravagant parties. Instead, he simply sat alone, drinking coffee, and listening to the sounds of the city, as if finding comfort in the bustling noises. But deep inside, a strange passion burned in him, to listen to the dreams of those around him. Every morning, Benjamin would visit the small cafés, where familiar faces sat in their usual corners, gazing out at the world through fogged-up windows. He wasn't one to socialize, but he loved to listen. Most people didn't notice him, because Benjamin never drew attention to himself. Occasionally, when someone sat nearby and started a conversation, he would listen without interrupting. These conversations always seemed to lead to dreams, simple desires that people kept hidden in their hearts. There was a middle-aged woman, with sad eyes and a worried face, whispering to her friend about her wish to travel one day, but lacking the money. There was an old man, sitting across the table, telling his final dream of visiting the ocean, feeling the cold waves and the salty air. Benjamin never interrupted these conversations, he simply wrote them down in his small notebook, like a habit. Gradually, this notebook became an inseparable part of his life, where each dream of someone else was kept as an invisible gift he gave to them. Benjamin's notebook was no ordinary one. It was an old leather notebook, worn down by time, with yellowed pages and crinkled edges. Every day, he would spend hours recording the things he heard. The dreams of others that they never knew he was listening to. These dreams were often small, but to Benjamin, they were incredibly important. He wrote about the dreams of strangers he met in cafés, parks, or the busy streets of Chicago. It might be a poor child wishing for a guitar to play for his mother, or a lonely girl hoping to travel the world, or an old man wishing to see the ocean one last time. Each dream was like a small dot in the endless river of life. Every day, he silently recorded the dreams of others, as a way to honor the memory of his beloved wife. Every night, before going to sleep, Benjamin would sit by the window, gazing at the sparkling streetlights outside, and ask himself a question he couldn't answer: can these small wishes truly change anyone's life? What could he do to make these dreams come true? And would he ever find the people who truly needed help among all those dreams? This question haunted him every night, like a constant urging, a force he couldn't stop, but perhaps, it was this very question that kept Benjamin on his journey, recording wishes, seeking out those who needed help, and finding ways to make those dreams come true. Because he knew that even if he couldn't change the world, at least he could change a small part of the world for the strangers whose stories he had heard. One early morning, Benjamin sat on his usual bench in the small park across from his apartment. It was a simple park with tree-lined paths, dogs running and playing, and the laughter of children echoing in the air. The surroundings were always peaceful, but today, in this tranquil space, there was a different story unfolding. Benjamin sat silently, holding his worn leather notebook, his eyes fixed on the people around him. Usually, he didn't hear anything extraordinary, but today was different. A boy named Tommy, around 10 years old, was sitting on a nearby bench. His eyes sparkled with longing, as if dreaming of something bigger. He whispered to a friend passing by, his voice choked with yearning, "I wish I had a guitar. I'd play music to make money to help my mom. She works as a janitor, always sick, never has money, but she still tries to do everything for me. I just want to do something for her." Benjamin sat in silence, listening to every word the boy said. Those simple words felt like a knife cutting into his heart. A small dream, but one full of longing, the longing of a child wanting to help the mother who had struggled for him. He could see the determination in Tommy's eyes, the resilience, and the fear of an uncertain future. But at the same time, he could sense a fragile hope, like a faint light in the dark. The next day, Benjamin couldn't shake the image of Tommy from his mind. He couldn't forget the boy's bright eyes filled with the desire for a guitar, a tool that could change his life. He decided to learn more about Tommy's family to see if there was anything he could do to help. Benjamin moved quietly, not wanting anyone to know about his presence in this story. He began to approach people living near Tommy's neighborhood. After a few brief conversations, Benjamin learned that Tommy's mother, Emily, was a middle-aged janitor at a nearby hospital. Her work was tough, and she rarely had time to rest, but she always did her best for her son. The image of her silently cleaning and scrubbing hospital hallways late at night remained etched in Benjamin's mind. Furthermore, Emily was suffering from a chronic illness, and despite her efforts to get better, her health wasn't improving. Tommy, with his loving and grateful heart, was the one who always encouraged her. But it was heartbreaking when Benjamin realized that Emily couldn't provide for the family, especially as Tommy was growing older and had his own dreams. Their life was tough, but Benjamin knew that in these circumstances, even the smallest of dreams were precious. And he realized one thing: a guitar could be the chance to change Tommy and his mother's lives. Benjamin didn't need much time to think. With everything he had learned about Tommy's situation, he knew there was something he could do to help. One day, after finishing his work, he went to a second-hand music shop a few streets away from his apartment. The shop was small but cozy, with old guitars displayed on the shelves. A quiet space, filled with the sounds of old melodies. Benjamin wasn't interested in expensive guitars or new models. He was looking for one that had a truly special sound, one that could inspire Tommy, to help him feel the beauty of music and nurture his dream. After a long search, Benjamin chose an old acoustic guitar, slightly scratched with a faded wooden body. But when he tuned it and played a few chords, the sound was perfect. It was the sound Benjamin had been looking for, the sound that could awaken the dream sleeping in a boy's heart. Benjamin bought the guitar and made all the arrangements carefully. He didn't want Tommy to know who the giver was, so he decided to keep everything a secret. Excited, Benjamin took the guitar home to prepare for a small plan he had devised. One late afternoon, when the neighborhood was less busy, Benjamin quietly carried the guitar to Tommy's doorstep. He placed the guitar on the porch, adjusted it slightly to make sure it was neat, and then placed a small card with a heartfelt message, "Play your dreams for the world to hear." Benjamin didn't expect an immediate reaction, but he felt a sense of peace in his heart. He believed that with this guitar, Tommy would be able to begin his own journey. Not just to make money, but to pursue his passion and dreams. The boy would find joy in every chord, every melody, and even in his own life. The next morning, when the sunlight streamed through the window, Tommy ran outside and saw the guitar placed at his doorstep. He froze, unable to believe his eyes. What he had longed for had suddenly become real. He sat down, holding the guitar in his hands, and with teary eyes, began to strum the first few chords. The sound from the guitar filled the air, a sweet, clear melody, like a silent thank you to someone. Tommy wasn't playing music to make money immediately, but because now he could express his dreams through each note. His small hands weren't quite used to the strings, but every note rang out in the quiet morning. He couldn't find the words, only holding the guitar close and choking back tears of happiness. Benjamin stood from afar, watching Tommy play, hearing the music resonate in the air. He didn't know why, but at that moment, he felt a great happiness in his heart. It wasn't happiness from material things or great achievements, but simply from seeing a dream, no matter how small, take flight. And in that moment, Benjamin smiled, his first smile in many years. His smile wasn't just an expression of joy. It was a release. It carried the saltiness of memories, of past pains, and of a past he had never left behind. But now, he knew that he had done something truly meaningful, and that was the most important thing. Every afternoon, Benjamin would pass by the nursing home to relax. This was the place where he found peace for his soul. The simple reason was that here, among the elderly, who lived in solitude, he could reconnect with the small but meaningful things in life. That day, it had been raining all day, and Chicago was shrouded in a misty atmosphere created by the cold raindrops. Benjamin entered the nursing home with no specific purpose other than to listen to the stories of the elderly residents, people who had lived long lives filled with many events. To see if he could find a dream or wish that he could help fulfill. In the quiet hallways, where soft yellow lights cast a glow on the old tiled floors, he suddenly heard a faint voice, but one full of longing. It was Ernest, an elderly blind man who had lived in the nursing home for many years. His voice came out softly, with a deep longing, as though it was a whisper from deep within his aged heart. "If I could, I would just wish to touch the ocean once more. The feeling of the sea breeze, the sound of the waves, and the salt of the sea. It's my last dream." He spoke, his trembling hands clutching an old bamboo cane. Benjamin stood still, not knowing why, but those words felt like an arrow piercing straight into his heart. Ernest had lived his entire life in darkness, never having had the chance to see the sunlight, let alone the ocean, where many people's dreams begin. Yet, his dream was simple: to touch the sea, to feel the vastness of nature through the waves and the cool breeze. It was his last dream in life, a dream no one knew about, except for people like Benjamin. Benjamin couldn't stop. His heart tightened when he heard those words. He looked at Ernest and saw his frail hands gripping the bamboo cane, as if it was the only thing holding him steady in this world. Ernest was too old, his eyes unable to see the light anymore, but one thing he still held on to was his dream, his final dream before leaving this world. Benjamin could feel the longing in Ernest's voice. It wasn't just a simple wish, but the desire of a person who had lived through so many years of life. It was the dream of someone who had been forced to give up many things he loved, yet couldn't let go of a tiny hope in his final days. Benjamin felt a sharp pain when he realized that this dream, so simple and beautiful, could become a luxury for someone like Ernest. Benjamin knew he had to do something to make Ernest's dream come true. He couldn't let a dream like that be passed over, especially when it came from someone who had suffered so much in life. Right after hearing Ernest's words, Benjamin couldn't sit still anymore. A strong resolve rose in his heart. He would not let this old man leave without touching the ocean. Though his life was always busy with work and responsibilities, when faced with such a genuine wish, he couldn't ignore it. Benjamin began planning the trip, not hesitating for even a second. He knew that taking an elderly person, especially a blind one, on a long journey wouldn't be easy. But he didn't care about the difficulties. He contacted a special car rental company and arranged for a perfect trip. The journey would not be an ordinary one, it would be the last gift to Ernest, so he could fully experience his dream. The trip was prepared with great care, from the warm blankets for Ernest, to snacks for both of them during the journey. The long trip from Chicago to the Miami coast would be a challenge, but for Benjamin, it was a necessary journey to fulfill a dream. When they arrived at the Miami coast, everything felt like a dream. The waves gently lapped the shore, and the sea breeze blew softly over the sand dunes, carrying the salty scent of the ocean. Benjamin helped Ernest out of the car, while the old man was still confused, unable to imagine all that was happening around him. Benjamin led Ernest to the edge of the sand, where the sound of the waves crashing on the shore could be heard clearly. When Ernest stepped barefoot onto the sand, he couldn't contain his emotions. Tears rolled down his cheeks, and he cried out in overwhelming happiness. His trembling hands reached out to touch the ocean water, hearing the waves crash against the shore, feeling the salty air. This was the moment he had been waiting for all his life. And although he could not see it, he could feel the vastness of the ocean, the eternity of nature. The scene was truly moving. An elderly blind man, in his final moments of life, had his dream fulfilled, to touch the ocean. And all of this was thanks to Benjamin. In that moment, Benjamin took Ernest's frail hand, feeling both its weakness and the strength of a person who had lived a full life. They stood there in silence, with only the sound of the waves and the sea breeze accompanying them. There was no need for words, no need for comfort, because in that moment, they understood each other more than any words could express. Both knew that this dream had come true. Benjamin just stood there, quietly, looking into Ernest's grateful eyes, feeling the happiness of having done something truly meaningful. That dream was not only Ernest's, but now it had also become Benjamin's dream. When the trip ended and Benjamin took Ernest back to the nursing home, no one spoke. But Ernest, in a weak but emotional voice, whispered, "Thank you, stranger, for letting me touch heaven." Benjamin tightly gripped the dream book in his hand, feeling the warmth of Ernest's words. He didn't need to say anything more because what he had done had said it all. The trip wasn't just an act of help, but a reminder to Benjamin of the importance of listening to and fulfilling the dreams of others, whether they are small dreams or great desires. Ernest's dream had come true, and that was the gift that life had given them. One morning, before the sun had reached every corner of Chicago, Benjamin entered his familiar coffee shop. It was the place he loved to visit for some quiet time, listening to the small stories of life around him. Everything in the coffee shop seemed peaceful, but today something felt special. In a corner of the room, a group of young friends were talking. A young girl with long hair and a bright face was conversing with her friend. Benjamin couldn't help but notice her story, for in it, there was a dream, a simple but resilient dream. The girl's name was Lily, a young seamstress with a big dream, to open her own small sewing shop. She said that since she was very young, she had been fascinated by fabrics, threads, and sewing needles. However, despite her passion, she had not been able to realize her dream due to financial constraints. She didn't have the opportunity to study in a professional school, but her love for the craft and relentless effort helped her hone her skills. Benjamin realized that Lily's dream was truly worth cherishing. A young girl who continuously worked to overcome adversity in order to pursue her passion was a role model of strength and hope. Benjamin knew he could help Lily, but he didn't want to just offer a one-time handout. He wanted to give her a real opportunity. After some thought, he decided to take action. He found an old shop in the old district, a place with a small storefront but full of potential. The shop wasn't luxurious, but it had enough space for Lily to start her work. It wasn't a perfect place. But for Lily, it would be a great beginning. Benjamin didn't want to make things too easy, but he also didn't want this young woman to struggle to pay for a rental space. So, he decided to buy the shop and offer it to Lily on a symbolic lease, just $1 a month. This would not only alleviate her financial burden but also give her a real chance to pursue her passion. Everything was done quietly, with no one knowing about Benjamin's actions. With this lease, Lily would have a space to make her dream come true without worrying about the cost of renting. That old shop would be the place where she would sew her first pieces of clothing and where she could nurture her bigger dreams in the future. One beautiful morning, when Lily had just woken up and was getting ready to go out, she found a small envelope on the table. She opened it and found a small key along with a simple card. On the card was a message: "So the dreams you have, for they are worth it." Lily stood still, not understanding what was happening. What was this key? And what did this message mean? After a moment of thinking, she realized that she had been given the opportunity she had always dreamed of. She didn't have the opportunity to study in a professional school, but her love for the craft and relentless effort helped her hone her skills. Benjamin realized that Lily's dream was truly worth cherishing. A young girl who continuously worked to overcome adversity in order to pursue her passion was a role model of strength and hope. Benjamin knew he could help Lily, but he didn't want to just offer a one-time handout. He wanted to give her a real opportunity. After some thought, he decided to take action. He found an old shop in the old district, a place with a small storefront but full of potential. The shop wasn't luxurious, but it had enough space for Lily to start her work. It wasn't a perfect place. But for Lily, it would be a great beginning. Benjamin didn't want to make things too easy, but he also didn't want this young woman to struggle to pay for a rental space. So, he decided to buy the shop and offer it to Lily on a symbolic lease, just $1 a month. This would not only alleviate her financial burden but also give her a real chance to pursue her passion. Everything was done quietly, with no one knowing about Benjamin's actions. With this lease, Lily would have a space to make her dream come true without worrying about the cost of renting. That old shop would be the place where she would sew her first pieces of clothing and where she could nurture her bigger dreams in the future. One beautiful morning, when Lily had just woken up and was getting ready to go out, she found a small envelope on the table. She opened it and found a small key along with a simple card. On the card was a message: "So the dreams you have, for they are worth it." Lily stood still, not understanding what was happening. What was this key? And what did this message mean? After a moment of thinking, she realized that she had been given the opportunity she had always dreamed of. She went straight to the old shop in the old district, the one Benjamin had bought, and unlocked the door with the small key. When she stepped inside, she couldn't believe her eyes. The empty space had now become a cozy shop, with enough room for her to start her sewing work. She silently thanked the person who had helped her, but she didn't know that it was Benjamin. She understood that this opportunity was not just a material gift, but a chance for her to live her passion, to bring to life the dreams she had carried through all the years of struggle. The opening day of Lily's shop arrived, and she couldn't hide her joy and emotion. She stood in front of the shop, looking inside where the sewing machines were waiting for her skilled hands to work. For the first time in her life, she felt a freedom and hope she had never imagined possible. When she opened the door to welcome her first customers, she called her mother over. The two of them embraced emotionally, tears falling from her eyes, tears of gratitude and boundless appreciation. Her mother had always been the one to encourage her, but it was the help of someone else that had made Lily's dream a reality. She looked into her mother's eyes and saw a renewed belief in her heart. Benjamin stood on a street corner, watching Lily's small shop. He didn't want her to know what he had done because he believed that such actions should come from the heart. He stood there, in his old coat, watching the young girl with a bright gaze of hope. He thought of his wife, who had once whispered to him when she was still alive, "Every hand that gives will keep a dream alive." Benjamin felt his heart warmer than ever. Although he didn't need any thanks, he knew he had done the right thing. And every dream he helped fulfill would continue to spread to others. That was how life became more beautiful. At the end of each month, something special takes place in Lincoln Park, a place where Benjamin often goes. No one knows that these small parties are organized by a secret person, who always stays in the shadows and never lets anyone see their face. Benjamin had quietly established these gatherings long ago when he realized that the greatest joy in life was seeing the dreams of others come true. This party was not an extravagant affair with sparkling lights or loud music. In fact, it was very simple, just a few tables, humble wooden chairs, lanterns hanging from the trees, and Tommy playing his guitar, filling the air with soft, warm melodies. But within this space, there was an abundance of love and gratitude. Each person attending had their own unique story, a dream they had achieved thanks to the unexpected gifts Benjamin had given them. They never knew who he was, but they all felt that their lives had changed because someone had believed in them. Benjamin would often stand quietly at a corner of the park, watching the happy faces and feeling warmth in his heart. He did not need thanks from anyone, because the changes in the lives of these people were the greatest gift he could receive. Each party was an opportunity for everyone he had helped to gather, share new dreams, new hopes, and reignite their belief in life. When the party began, Tommy was the first to stand up. He took the old guitar Benjamin had bought for him. And now he played a gentle, warm tune. The chords echoed like notes of freedom, hope, and dreams that had never faded. Tommy had grown a lot since the first time he held the guitar. Just as Benjamin had written in the small card, "Play your dream for the world to hear." Now, Tommy was not only playing music for himself but was sharing his music with the world, helping others with his art. Lily also joined the party. She didn't play music, but her skilled hands created fragrant cakes and snacks for everyone to enjoy. She smiled brightly, sharing stories about her journey of opening her own sewing workshop, making the party even warmer. The cakes did not just bring joy to others, they also carried the love she had for her work. Each cake, each dish, held the dreams and hopes of Lily and others like her, always rising above hardship to find joy in life. Ernest, whose eyesight had gradually faded over time, was also present. Although he couldn't come in person, he had sent an audio recording of a poem he had written during his final days. His voice, though weak, was still warm and filled with emotion. He recited verses about the sea, about freedom, and about dreams that had been fulfilled. The poem was a deep expression of gratitude to all those who had helped him realize his last dream in life. Those who listened could not hold back their emotions, and tears began to fall. The party took place in a warm, emotional atmosphere. Everyone felt that this was a special occasion, a time for them to meet, share the changes in their lives, and thank those who had helped them. However, none of them knew that the person who had helped them was Benjamin, a man they had never met. The party was filled with laughter and joyful stories. Children ran and played, adults exchanged hugs, and words of thanks were sent everywhere. However, somewhere in the space, silent tears fell, emotions too deep for words. Benjamin's heart warmed as he saw the happiness around him. He knew that, even though no one knew him, all the dreams he had helped fulfill had become a reality. At that party, there was a young boy who had once wandered the streets, living a life with no place to call home. The boy wasn't a standout figure in the crowd, but he was there because he had received a warm coat during a cold winter thanks to Benjamin's help. When he saw others sharing their stories, the boy stood up and said, "There are angels, even though we may never see them." Those words made Benjamin unable to hold back his emotions. He stood quietly, tears in his eyes, because he knew that sometimes the quietest actions are the most meaningful. The boy had seen angels not with his eyes but with his heart. And in that heart, Benjamin had left a mark, a belief that life can always be better. Benjamin stood in a corner of the park, watching the people he had helped. Each story, each smile, each hug was part of the long journey filled with hardships and challenges he had experienced. For the first time in many years, he felt his heart grow warm. The wounds in his heart seemed to be healing. The pain, the losses he had once endured no longer hurt as they once did. He realized that the love he had sown, though quiet, could bring healing. He did not need to receive anything in return, because the changes in these people's lives were enough to bring him peace. Quiet love, dreams fulfilled, this was the healing remedy for the wounds in Benjamin's heart. When the party ended, Benjamin quietly returned to his usual spot in the park. The old notebook was always with him, and today, he opened a new page. He wrote the familiar words, now a reminder to himself, each dream fulfilled is a thank you to the one who believed in the dream. These dreams were not only his but also of all those he had helped. He knew that in this world, many people needed an opportunity to fulfill their dreams. And Benjamin, though just a stranger, had become the bridge that helped make those dreams come true. On a gentle autumn afternoon, Benjamin was sitting on an old wooden bench in Lincoln Park, his eyes quietly gazing at the fiery sunset over the city of Chicago. A light breeze swirled around him, carrying the cool air of fall, accompanied by the rustling sound of leaves under the footsteps of passers-by. These moments seemed peaceful, but inside Benjamin, a feeling of emptiness stirred. As he sat there, reflecting on life and the things that had passed, suddenly a child's innocent voice broke his thoughts. A little girl, about 7 years old, with bright, curious eyes, had approached him. She raised her small hand and looked up at Benjamin, asking a question no one expected, "Uncle, do you have a wish?" The simple question made Benjamin's heart flutter a little. He looked into the clear eyes of the girl, and a painful question suddenly arose in his heart, "Do I have a wish for myself?" Benjamin sat in silence for a moment, unable to answer immediately. The little girl's question wasn't just a casual inquiry. It was like a call deep within him. He had spent his entire life making other people's dreams come true, helping those in need, those who required encouragement. Every step he took was to make their dreams a reality. But during all that time, he had forgotten to wish for himself. he had been so focused on the wishes of others that he had forgotten his own small dreams. Despite being a billionaire with vast wealth, deep inside his heart, he realized there was something missing. A dream of his own. Benjamin's eyes welled with tears, his heart tightening as he realized that in his life, he had lost the most important thing, his own dream, as Benjamin bent down to look at the little girl. Unsure how to respond to her innocent question, the boy beside her, who had been quietly standing there the whole time, suddenly spoke. The boy was small, but his eyes were bright, full of purity and understanding. He handed Benjamin a small wildflower, delicate and beautiful, as if it were a priceless gift. The boy spoke seriously, "If you make a wish, you have to let it go into the wind. When you wish, the dream will fly far and come true." The boy's words were simple, but they carried a profound meaning that Benjamin had never considered. The wildflower in Benjamin's hand symbolized simple but deep things, representing dreams that were humble, unpretentious, and unselfish, just needing to be planted in the heart and set free in the wind. Benjamin looked up at the wildflower in his hand, then back at the boy, a gentle smile appearing on his lips. He felt that sometimes, dreams don't need to be grand or monumental. They can be small, simple things, but they are incredibly valuable. The boy, with his pure heart, had helped him realize that to live fully, everyone needs their own dreams, no matter how small they may be. Benjamin sat there, silently closing his eyes, letting his soul soar in the peaceful space of the park. The boy's words still echoed in his mind, "Let your dreams go into the wind." He realized that if he had one wish for himself, it would be to have more time to love more, to do more, to witness the dreams he had helped others nurture continue to grow, spread, and change the world. He had spent his entire life helping others, but never thought about loving himself more. Perhaps because he thought loving others was enough. But now, having recognized the emptiness within, he understood that loving oneself was also important. More time to live, to love, to help not only others but also himself, that was Benjamin's simplest wish. As the sunset slowly descended, Benjamin stood up and slowly walked under the warm light of the setting sun. The old dream notebook in his hand was already filled with entries about dreams that had been realized, but today, it had a new page, a page written about his own wish. His eyes shone brightly, the light of a child, full of hope and faith in the future. Benjamin walked through the familiar streets of Chicago, the city he had lived and worked in for many years. But today, everything seemed new, as if he were seeing the world through a different pair of eyes. Every step he took carried a new dream, a renewed belief in life. He understood that, no matter what, life could always change, as long as we had faith and a desire to be loved. As he walked through the sunset, Benjamin understood that greatness was not the most important thing. Those who live this life do not necessarily have to become great, but they just need to know how to quietly light up the world around them. Like Benjamin, he did not need fame or recognition. He only needed to know that he had done good things for life, helping others realize their dreams. And that was the deepest meaning of life, not greatness, but small, sincere things, quiet actions that bring light to the world. Thank you for listening to the story of Benjamin and his dreams. I hope this story has brought you a little light, a bit of inspiration to continue dreaming and loving more every day. If you love heartfelt, motivating stories, don't forget to click subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any stories from Gentle Heart Stories. We will meet again on other journeys, where dreams continue to be shared. Thank you, and see you soon.